Good afternoon, Council. I'd like to call this regular council meeting of May 13th, 2025 to order. For the adoption of the agenda, I'd like to amend the agenda to remove 7B, the presentation by the chamber. We're going to do that next month. So someone want to make that motion for me, please? Councillor Cherry, Councillor Devlin, all in favor? Motion's carried. Adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting of April 22nd. Someone want to make that motion? Councillor Devlin, Councillor Lucelle, all in favor? Motion's carried. Adoption of the special council meeting minutes of May 6th. Councillor Cherry, Councillor Devlin, all in favor? Motion's carried. Any business arising from the regular council meeting minutes of April 22nd? Seeing none, moving on to business arising from the special council meeting, May 6th. Councillor Cherry.
Thanks, Marcel. I'm just curious if there's been an update with the wastewater treatment plan. I know that we were hoping to get confirmation from the province before May 31st.
Okay.
Just curious if that's happened.
Mr. Black, you want to weigh in?
I can start. I think Mr. Parliament would.
You want me to start or
Sure.
finish?
Why don't you go ahead and start?
I'll start. Okay, thank you. I'll try to stay clear of the technical. That's your realm.
Thank you.
Overall, it's in the hands of the province. So staff have received our confirmation that full consultation was completed regards to the liquid waste management plan. And staff tell us that the minister must sign off. And so the ball is in the government's court to make sure that the information provided by the city to the province checks all the boxes, and hopefully the minister, who's been alerted at the timeline, May 31st, will sign off. The crunch is, you know, we've got an agreement with a contractor to build and expand the wastewater treatment plant, but they can only hold firm the prices to May 31st. The ministry is aware of that. We've written a letter. We've asked the minister to contact the mayor. And we're also having our MLA push hard, and he's aware of it. And they've broken for spring session, and we're just awaiting word. I do believe we're going to get good news before May 31st. I just, that's the spidey sense in me. I did like the response back from the province acknowledging receipt of the information. I don't know if there's anything else to add, Steve.
Thank you, Evan. I last Friday sent an email off to the province and the reviewing department indicated that yes, this is a very high priority for them, and that yes, they are aware by the end of the month that this is critical for us. So I think that's a good sign that this has been elevated to a place that hopefully means action will occur before the end of the month. We have a couple of weeks to get there.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate both of you for your update. Thanks.
And further to that, I have sent a letter to the minister. The minister's assistant has confirmed that they've been in receipt of the letter. So they're all on the same page. And as Mr. Parliament said, Mr. McGinnis, our MLA, is backgrounding things for us there as well. So any other business arising from minutes? Seeing none, I am going to go to announcements from the mayor. So I've got a few announcements here. So first of all, I want to welcome back Ms. Moore. Thank you for coming back. I'm sure you had a blast on your vacation, but we're happy to have you back. Welcome. I also want to thank staff, our consultant Joel, and council for us actually having DCC resolutions on the table today. So thank you all so much for working hard on that. It's really wonderful to see that we can actually have those conversations today. And thirdly, I want to thank and congratulate Cindy Floyd, our corporate officer. She has been recognized by CAMA for a long service award. 15 years in municipal government. So Ms. Floyd, thank you for all that you do for us, and congratulations on longevity in with the city of Revelstoke. All right, let's have a round of applause. We are now going to move on to our delegations and presentations. Ms. Spencer's here with financial statements from BDO's audit. Ms. Spencer, you're up.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and to all council. Pleasure to be here. My name is Angie Spencer. I'm a partner with BDO, and we were engaged to be the independent auditors of the City of Revelstoke's financial statements as at December 31st. I'll maybe share my screen just so we can walk through the financial statements.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so you should be able to see those on the screen now. I'll just make them a bit bigger
Yes.
for you. Okay. So these are, of course, subject to your review and approval today. Included in this is our independent audit report as proposed. We are proposing to issue what's considered a clean or unqualified audit opinion, meaning that the financial statements as presented are considered free of material misstatement and that they are presented consistent and in accordance with public sector accounting standards, which of course all municipalities must follow in Canada. So I'm moving on to the consolidated statement of financial positions. So this is a snapshot, if you will, at December 31st of all of the financial assets, liabilities, and then non-financial assets of the city as at December 31st. Financial assets increased from 55.4 million up to 61.5 during the year. Some increases there in cash and cash equivalents. That was related to some funding that was received and DCC increases during the year. So the overall surplus in cash that is increased during the year. Taxes receivable and accounts receivable are fairly consistent with prior year. There was a slight increase with some of that cash being redispersed into portfolio investments to earn a higher rate of interest. The overall investment in RCFC Holding, the Forestry Corporation, that actually decreased during the year. There was some losses in that corporation that were flowed through these financial statements. In terms of liabilities, that increased from 32 million up to 33.3 million during the year. The most substantial increases there, there was an increase overall in accounts payable and accrued liabilities just with ongoing projects and timing of invoices and expenses. Deferred revenue is the largest kind of current liability on the financial statements, and Note 7 provides a little more detail to that. The most substantial item in that deferred revenue is the deferred development cost charges. So that increased quite substantially during the year, with some of it being recognized with all the development happening in Revelstoke. Non-financial assets, the most significant item in there, of course, is tangible capital assets. That increased by about 12.2 million of additions. Large amount in infrastructure and roads during the year work, some sewer upgrades and wastewater upgrades, and that's offset by amortization during the year. So at the end of the day, the total assets less liabilities equals your accumulated surplus of just over 140 million. On to the statement of operations. So this includes all the revenues and expenditures for the year. The first column there is what was budgeted. The second is the actual results. And then the third column is the comparative figures. So the total revenues for the year came in at 45.2 million. That was up over the prior year and down slightly over budget. That's largely due to the timing differences of grant funding that's received. So some of those that are restricted will be recognized in revenue as those funds are spent. Taxation was very much in line with what was expected in terms of budgeted. And you'll see that there was some increases around user fees during the year and also investment income, a large increase just with favorable interest rates, et cetera, and more cash being put into portfolio investments, et cetera. There are a couple of Other items to highlight: forgiven loan revenue. The Revelstoke Community Energy Corporation is consolidated now into the city's financial statements. And during the year, there was a loan amount owing from RCFC that was forgiven. So that is a $1.2 million gain that's recognized. In addition, there was a one-time contribution of assets that is valued at fair value brought in as a contribution during the year of $1.35 million. Total expenditures came in at 32 million. That's up from 30.1 million in the prior year. Again, just overall an increase in expenditures, inflationary costs. There's also amortization included in the 2024 balances. And then now with the expenditures of our CEC being consolidated into the city, that's an additional $1 million there of expenditures recognized. So total annual surplus came in at 13.2 million at the end of the year. I'm just going to quickly flip then. You'll see here is just the statement of cash flows, which goes over, ignoring all those accounting nuances, just what the overall cash position, anything with brackets around it is cash going out, anything without is cash coming in. So there was an overall increase in the cash balances of about $4.2 million during the year. After that is the notes to the financial statements. I'm not proposing to go through all of those in detail. Those just provide some further detail to the balance sheet and income statement accounts that I have highlighted. There are no new there's one new accounting standard during the year that has been fully adopted in the financial statements, Public Sector Accounting 3400. But other than that, there's no new statements or notes that I want to bring to your attention today. So that's it for the financial statements. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have either on the financials or on the audit process.
Great. Council, any questions for Ms. Spencer? Ms. Spencer, my question, when we see surplus, that's not like we've got $4 million in our jeans anywhere. It's basically money that's put into reserves. Is that correct?
That's correct. So there is obviously some differences between cash accounting and the public sector accounting standards. You'll see in the notes to the financial statement a reconciliation to your zero rated budget. So you're always anticipating having a zero rated budget. But also there is quite a few, as I mentioned, deferred revenues. So items that have been kind of put aside that will be spent as capital projects, et cetera, are undertaken.
Great, thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you, Ms. Spencer. Appreciate your time and thank you for all your work and keeping us on task with our budgets. Thank you.
All right, thanks very much.
All right, Council, we are going to move on to 9A, bylaws, municipal ticket information system amendment, bylaw number 2408. Mr. Jips, you couldn't make that title any longer for me?
I mean, if you'd like, we can try for the next time.
All right. Any overview prior to putting this on the table?
I can give a quick high-level overview. This is just for final adoption, the amendments that were put forward in front of council at the last meeting there. We've made no changes since, we're proposing no changes since the first through third reading there. At this point, staff are looking forward to getting this adoption so we can begin the enforcement under the new zoning bylaw.
Great, appreciate it, thank you. Do you want to put that on the table for us, Councilor Chair?
I move that municipal ticket information system amendment bylaw number 2408 be adopted.
Seconded for the motion, Councilor Palmer. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jips. Moving on to item B. Fence notice amendment bylaw. Someone want to put that on the motion, Councilor Chair?
I move that bylaw fence notice amendment bylaw number 2409 be adopted.
Seconded for the motion, please, Councilor Palmer. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Moving on to zoning amendment bylaw 2416. Do we have a brief overview on that, Mr. Simon?
Through your worship, Ms. Colmars is the file manager for us, so I'll leave over here to give council a brief overview.
All right, so Ms. Colmars, go ahead.
I don't have a presentation, but brief overview will be.
Sure.
This is to rezone the lands from RLD 7 to RLD 6, allowing for tourist accommodation to occur on site for an existing single-family dwelling with a secondary suite. This property is in alignment with the official community plan as it resides within the resort fringe land use designation. So our recommendation is for it to be read a first time, second time, third time, and then adopted.
All right, thank you. Councilor Palmer.
Yeah, I'll move that zoning amendment bylaw number 2416 be read a first and second time.
All right, do I have a seconder for that? Councilor Devlin, any discussion on the motion? Councilor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor Souls. Just a couple of questions. I'm curious when the application was received.
Ms. Colmars, do you have that information?
Well, my director, Paul, is going to pull it up for me right now, but it would have been received in 2024, and it would have likely come in around October off the top of my head, but it might have been November.
Okay. And then just a question regarding the, in the report, you have that no additional development is planned at this time. Through the chair, but is there a potential for development without rezoning, further development that would increase density, I guess?
Well, if they wanted to subdivide the lot is only permissible to be subdivided with the RLD 6 designation if it is 10,000 square meters or larger. This lot is just above 2,000 square meters, so the applicant would be basically moving into a position of not being able to subdivide further for smaller lot scale development.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Simon.
Through your worship, just to add on and answer the prior question. So November 7th is when the application was received, 2024. It did have a little bit of a lag just because we had the new zoning bylaw rewrite going. So it had to wait for that to get through, unfortunately. And the RLD 6 zone does allow for minor additions, accessory buildings, et cetera, things of that nature. That would be more residential style development, but it would not allow for proliferation of short-term rental. They were permitted one short-term rental on the property, so they could operate that out of the secondary suite or the primary dwelling, and that would be at the discretion of the owner.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Someone want to put reading three times, third time on here for me, please. Councilor Cherry.
I move that zoning amendment bylaw number 2416 be read a third time.
2417? No, 2416, sorry. I am one ahead. All right, seconder for the motion, please. Councilor Stapenhurst, discussion on the motion.
Yeah, I'll just, if I can.
Yep, go ahead.
As this aligns with the OCP, I see no reason to slow it down.
Okay, Councilor Palmer, comment?
Always that balance on helping development proceed and the ability of public input. This is one that's pretty minor, quite frankly, as far as the actual zoning amendment. It's within the policies and stuff.
Right.
I'll be speaking further to that again on the next one. More specifically, you've heard that voice before. I continue to express concern that we do not provide opportunity to the public for a process of the input. And we've been limited by the province on that as well. Thank you, Mayor Souls. I'm not sure if I'm going to vote in favor or against.
All right. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those on third reading. Motion's approved. Opposed, pardon me. Councilor Palmer is opposed. Balance of council is in favor. This motion is carried. Someone want to read for adoption, please? Councilor Cherry.
I move that zoning amendment bylaw number 2416 be adopted.
Seconder for the motion, please. Councilor Lusal. Any discussion on this motion? Councilor Palmer.
Yeah, just on that principle, I'll be opposed, not because I'm opposed to the development itself. It's on the procedural aspects. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilor Orlando.
Your worship, yeah, just to reflect, on third reading, I was not in favor. I was opposed to that and I'll vote for this one.
All right, thank you.
OCP, just as a comment, OCP aligned, applications like this one, can go from first reading to, final adoption, but are not required to. And echoing the comments of, Councilor Palmer, this has been around since November, and we can provide an opportunity for the community to have a look. And I think that makes, when we operate that way with everything, it makes it look, makes life for us better to do things that way.
Great. Thank you. Any other comments? I'll call a question on adoption. All those in favor? Opposed? Note that Councilor Palmer, Councilor Orlando are opposed. Balance of Councilor is in favor. This motion passes. Moving on to item D, zoning amendment bylaw 2417. Is there an overview that you would like to give us? Mrs. Kovacs.
Thanks. I'll just give a brief overview. So this is a zoning bylaw text amendment to the new comprehensive development zone 8. This is for the Mackenzie Village development in the Mackenzie Plaza. So the request is for the use brewery, cidery, distillery, meadery, or winery to be added into a specific sub-area A section of that CD zone. This is a request as the applicant is looking to operate a microbrewery that would also include a tasting room and snacks and retail use. This is looking to go into unit, I believe it's 4110. Which has a floor area of 162 square meters and is considered a microbrewery. Staff are supportive of this use being added into the city zone, specifically to sub-area A, and do recommend that council consider the bylaw for first adoption.
Thank you. Councilor Palmer.
Yeah, I move that zoning amendment bylaw number 2417 be read a first and second time.
Second for the motion, please, Councilor Devlin. Discussion on the motion.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to the motion. I like the idea. I think generally people would like the idea, other than some people that are in the past and like the development as a whole, but as a complement to that development, and it seems like a good idea. I'll make my comments regarding, I really would like to see the third reading at the next meeting. Would like to have a public hearing. It could be in a regular meeting, that ideally, and I'll explain why. So first of all, there's those procedural things and fairness and giving the public that right to do that. I will ask a question first before I carry on. So the question I have is to the chair, to planning. If council decided to have a public hearing, are we able to do that in this case?
Mr. Simon?
Through Councilor Palmer, yes, you would be permitted to. It is compliant with the OCP, so you're not required to. The only time that we're restricted from holding a public hearing is when it's for residential development. So because this is not residential, you would be permitted to hold a public hearing if council so chose.
Right, thank you. So the reason that we have public hearings is there might be something that's not in the body of knowledge, staff and ourselves, as to something that we just don't even see. And so by having a public hearing, it doesn't have to be a big deal. It can be at the beginning of the next meeting. I don't anticipate this to be a big thing. If the whole town comes out, then we know it's a big thing. But there, what have we not heard? And so Mayor Souza, just I guess with your permission, this is more on why I'm hoping it just carries on at this point.
Sure.
So I just remember of an experience when I worked in Whistler. Whistler Brewery had odor issues. And I don't know that microbreweries today, if they have odor issues, but that would be an example of something that maybe the public is aware, and then we could get that kind of information. There might be something that we're not aware of. And so with that, I'll be very supportive of the first and second reading. With your permission, I'll put a motion afterwards to have a public hearing be held at the next regular council meeting.
Okay. So, Councilor Chair.
Thanks, Marcel. I have a couple questions. It says here that public consultation has happened. I'm just curious, through the chair, if there's been any public outcry or feedback so far to plan?
Through the chair, the application was advertised in the newspaper. There's a notice of application sign posted on the property. And then also letters have gone out to residents. It's just a notice that the application is coming to council. And then in the staff report, it is outlined if this was to go through, the applicant has applied to the LCRB for their liquor license. That will also come back. If this is approved, that will come back to council. And at that time, letters go out to neighboring property owners that can provide comment on the liquor operation. So that's where we're looking at our liquor policy of the operation. If there's any noise issues, you can deal with odor at that time. It is a provincial regulation. So there should not be any odor issues with how it's built. But that is something at that time, if there's concerns with how it's operated is addressed. This is looking at, is the use appropriate for that? So.
Thanks. And I just, if I can just follow up, I'm curious if that information has changed Councillor Palmer's point of view at all.
Through the chair, it's hearing from the public something that I don't know exists. And I don't see this as being an onerous thing. That would be on my subsequent motion anyway.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm supportive of first and second reading.
All right. Any more comments on first and second reading? Seeing none, I will call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. So, Councillor Palmer, you wanted to put another motion on?
Yes,
If seconded, we'll go for it.
I move that zoning amendment bylaw number 2417, I move that a public hearing for zoning amendment bylaw number 2417 be held at the earliest convenient regular council meeting.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Devlin, discussion on the motion. Councillor Cherry.
Thanks again, Marcel. Just through the chair, if I could just have a quick overview on when this would come back for a public hearing, as I don't have the bylaw in front of me.
So I'll go to Councillor Palmer and then to staff.
So Mayor Souls, I guess ideally it'd be at the next council meeting, but there's advertising requirements, so I don't know if it'll be achievable.
Any comment, Ms. Floyd?
We would have to advertise Mayor Cells for 2 consecutive weeks in the newspaper. So it wouldn't be able to be heard until the first meeting in June, so that we could meet those requirements.
Any other comments from Councillor Devlin?
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with Councillor Palmer on this one. We've had issues with this specific development and people's perceptions of this development, and some of that is perception for sure. Absolutely, but we've also had issues when we've attempted to expand retail space. The public is very interested in the development of this development, and given that this is an amendment to a very complex CD zone, I don't see any particular issues with having the public weigh in. I don't particularly expect a huge outcry on this specific use. I just think when it comes to continuously editing the CD zone and adding new uses, that maybe slowing it down and getting some feedback from the public is actually a good idea, as opposed to the last motion where it was someone's property and so I'm in support of the public hearing in this case.
Any other comments from council? Councillor Stephenhurst?
Yeah, I have a question through the chair in regards to the application. Looking at it, it looks as though, if I'm reading this correctly, it looks as though we're allowing the permitted use of brewery, cidery, distillery in sub-area A, or is it specifically in unit 4110? In which case, like my question is would this zoning amendment be permissive in all of sub-area A or only in that one unit?
Through the chair, it'd be sub area 8. It's not unit specific. However, all the other units are filled within that sub area 8. If someone wanted to change from the units to brewery, then we'd be looking at a liquor license. Whether council would support another liquor license there for a brewery is another question. So we do have another mechanism of reviewing that operation of that use, and whether the LCRB would approve a second brewery in the same location is also up to them as well. So this is looking at the use brewery, cidery, distillery, winery, because they're all paired together under one use, whether they do one of those within sub area A. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the
Follow-up?
Yeah, thank you. A follow-up, maybe just to Director Black. I see that the engineering department was consulted on this. But I'm just wondering about the impact that this may have on our wastewater sewage treatment facility plant, and if there's any concerns that he may have with approving of this facility.
Wild's statement hers. I have met directly with the proponent and indicated to him that he must comply with our sanitary sewer district bylaw. And that the Microbrewery Association in the province has standard packages to treat the effluent, and those will be installed as a part of this project. So engineering has no concerns with this project going in as it is.
Okay, thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Any other comments? Councilor Orlando?
Yeah, I support the motion to proceed to a public hearing. I think it's an opportunity at an early stage to get some feedback from people. They may not read the newspaper, the notices are in the print version, and may not have seen it. Just allows people to provide comment, and I think especially providing comment on things they want changed or tweaked or requirements, that kind of stuff. Not yes or no questions, but just those types of input. So.
All right, any other comments? Seeing none, I will call the question on the public hearing. All those in favor? Note the motion is carried, it's unanimous. Thank you, we will have that, so staff will schedule that. I'm going to move on now to item E, Fire Prevention, Protection and Control Services Amendment Bylaw. Chief, just a brief overview. It's because of the title changes and whatnot with the program. That's why we're needing to do that, or is there more that you'd like to add?
Thanks, Your Worship. Essentially, it's an administrative housekeeping item with the changes to the Fire Safety Act. The Office of Fire Commissioner no longer supports the fire inspectors and fire investigators under the local assistant to the fire commissioner. And it is now within the authority having jurisdiction, the municipal council, to provide the legal authority for the fire inspector and fire investigator to enter private property. So that's what this is all to put in motion and provide those authorities and reduce liability.
Oh, great. Thank you. Appreciate that. Any questions that Chief DeRossi before I ask for the motion on it there? Councilor Stigner.
I have a question. Just looking at the proposed bylaw, it looks as though the fire inspectors are limited to the deputy fire chief, the fire inspector, and the fire inspection assistant clerk. Why are we not allocating some of those responsibilities to the individual firefighters that are on the floor? And in hopes of doing so, potentially reducing the overtime that is being collected by those three named parties or groups.
Chief, comment?
Through your worship, so there would be no overtime for the fire inspector roles. And there are also some issues around the collective agreement and who is permitted to do what work. And so volunteer firefighters will not be permitted to do work under the collective agreement. The fire investigations potentially could generate some overtime depending on the time of the call, whether the fire inspector is available at the time to respond during the call if it's after hours, or if they would begin and follow up after the start of their work days.
Yeah. And then if I can, just a quick follow-up, I see that with the fire investigations, we have a classification of captains, but to the best of my knowledge, we don't have captain's position within the city. So could you elaborate on that for me, please?
Certainly, through your worship. So part of the planning for the future of Revelstoke, what some of the recommendations in the master plan prompted the inclusion of classifications and titles that do not yet exist, but are anticipated to exist in the future.
Thank you for that explanation. Appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments? Saying none, I'll call. I'd like somebody to put the motion on the table for me, please. Councilor Orlando?
Your worship, I move that Fire Prevention, Protection and Control Services Amendment Bylaw number 2418 be read first, second, and third time.
Second for the motion, Councilor Luciano. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Councilor Orlando, you have a comment?
Oh, yeah, just a quick follow-up. There's track changes of the bylaw linked to the first document here. It seems like it's an update for compliance for provincial changes, and appreciate the questions and responses from the chief about some of the changes that we have here. And yeah, it looks good.
Great. Anything else? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? No, motion's carried unanimously. Thank you, Chief. All right, we are moving on to development cost charges bylaw 2414. Black and Dual consultant. You have an oversight or a bit of a presentation.
Full presentation, please.
And so I'll go back to that. I asked for just a conversation or a full thing. I think he's pulling your chain, and so I'll pull his. If you can give us something that the public's gonna really enjoy.
Thank you, Your Worship, and Council. I'm very, very pleased to finally get this project in front of you. It's been a long process. I personally am very, very pleased with the outcome of the study, the work that has been done, the collaboration between planning, finance, our consulting team to bring forward what I believe is a very, very well-written and easily defendable amendment and bylaw. My consultant, our consultant, Joel Short, is here that will walk you through the process. And please keep in mind that I believe this is our 9th presentation to finance, PIC, and to council, the community as a whole. And so I hope none of the information that's coming to you today is a surprise.
Great.
And with that, I'll turn it over to
Mr. Short, come on up. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So I will just take you through your council report. So there was a council report with a number of attachments, but I would like to just go through that report, hit on all the points. As Steve mentioned, we've been working on this bylaw now since about October 2023, so we're about 18 months. And we have had 8 various meetings with council committees. So this would be meeting number 9, and we've engaged with the public and the developer and builder community. We've had information on Talk Revelstoke on the website since September 24, and we've also updated it as we went along because there was a number of changes, and all of this kind of brings us to a point where we have this bylaw before you. Revelstoke has had DCCs since 1979. The last real update was in 2008, aside from a minor adjustment in 2021 and an attempt in 2018 that did not proceed. To provide us with all of the information to update the DCCs, the city completed the official community plan, the water master plan, transportation master plan, liquid waste management plan, and parks and recreation master plan. So that provided us with great information for the DCC update. When we were updating the DCC, we considered a number of options for the charges. There was an option based on kind of a combination of units and sizes, another option based on a range of sizes, and then an option based on floor area. And after review of the options with council committees and staff, we determined that floor area was the best approach for Revelstoke. And there are a number of reasons set out in the report, including it incentivizes the creation of larger quantity of smaller units. The ranges that we had proposed, there were a few issues in that the rates kind of jumped quite a bit as you cross from one range threshold to another. By doing it based on floor area, you have a much smoother increase in the charges based on dwelling as the dwellings increase in size. It also arranges or aligns with the recent provincial changes that allows many different forms of units. So now we've got, it doesn't really matter what form the unit takes, the charge by floor area means that it will be consistent across units.
We're also consistent in terms of collecting at building permit stage. Currently, some DCCs are collected at subdivision stage, and if there's further development, then additional DCCs at building permit stage. With this, it'll be all at building permit stage. And also, it ensures some consistency between the way residential, commercial, industrial, and institutional are all charged, all based on square meters. And that makes it easier to administer for staff and for applicants. We also took a look at the revenues, and the revenues generated were about the same based on some of these different approaches. So the revenues based on floor area are similar to other approaches. There's a few other important items that we mentioned in the report, that reductions or waivers, for example, for affordable housing projects, those can be dealt with on a specific case-by-case basis. Staff would have to bring forward a specific bylaw for those cases, authorizing any reduction of DCCs for these projects, but it allows you to consider them on an individual bylaw by bylaw basis. Tourist accommodation, like hotels, for example, they'll be charged the same rate as residential for their occupiable space, like hotel rooms, and then the remaining commercial space, like the lobbies and conference rooms and those types of things, will be charged based on the commercial rates. That improves things from the way things are now. There'd also be a credit for lots that have paid at subdivision, because there's some lots out there that have already paid at subdivision. We've clarified what the credit will be. It's either the charge that's already been paid, or up to the charge for 120 square meters of residential, which is about 19,500, whichever is greater. And then renovations and expansions, those are based on the difference in size. So if you expand in size, then you pay on the difference. Renovations to existing spaces are only charged if they increase the occupancy load. There also is no DCC paid if the construction value is less than $100,000. So if things fall under that threshold, if you're doing some renovations that are under that, then there would be no DCC paid, regardless of what you're building there. And then the bylaw has three main areas. There's a primary city area. Then there's Big Eddy, because it has no sewer and a separate type of water system. And then there's the West Side Road, Kelly Flats, Dales area, which don't have sewer or water. So we've got these different areas set out in the official community, or in the bylaw. And then we have DCCs for transportation, water, sanitary sewer, and parks. And the rates that you see are almost the same as what we presented in the last meetings. We made a few adjustments to clarify the wastewater treatment plant, because then we have nice, very recent costs for those, so we could fine tune that. And we clarified some reservoir and road projects to include in the DCC project list. So in the end, we end up with in the primary city area, a rate of about $162 per square meter for residential, which is about $15 a square foot, if you think about things in square feet. And if you had, say, home construction costs of, say, $300 per square feet, it could be way more, it could be less, but $15 would be about 5% of that cost. So that just gives you a bit of a frame of reference in terms of what these costs represent. The commercial DCCs are about $168 per square meter, the industrial about $112 per square meter, and institutional about $184 per square meter. And those changes are based on kind of reflecting the impacts of various services on the infrastructure. So in terms of when the rates come into effect, the new rates would come into effect upon adoption of the bylaw. However, for building permit applications that are received before the bylaw is adopted, they'll pay the old rates. So if there's something that's in stream, already there, already in process, then they will pay the old rates if that building permit is issued within 12 months of adopting the bylaw. So there's a 12-month period that they have to get that building permit issued and kind of meet all the requirements. Building permit applications received after adopting the new bylaw, they'll pay the new rates. So even if you come in like 3 days after the new bylaw has been adopted, then you pay the new rates. The old rates only apply if you got your application in before the bylaw is adopted. Now, in terms of the adoption process, this bylaw requires approval of the inspector of municipality. So Once council gives 3 readings to a bylaw, then it is submitted to the Inspector of Municipalities at the Ministry of Housing and Municipal Affairs for review and approval. It takes them a couple of months, maybe 2 or 3 months, to review everything, make sure everything is meeting what's set out in the Local Government Act. And then once it's been approved by the Inspector of Municipalities, then it comes back to the city, and then it comes back to council for adoption. So there's that extra step for this bylaw because it needs to be approved by the Inspector of Municipalities. When we discussed the DCCs with various committees, I understand there was also a desire to have further discussion on the assist factors. So the report, the DCCs set out in the report, are based on a municipal assist factor of 1%. We have information in the report on the impacts of increasing the assist factor. We have examples of, in addition to the 1%, we've got 10%, 20%, and 30%. And the report shows the charge on a sample home at different assist factors and the amount of assistance in dollar values that the municipality would need to provide. Because if you assist, that assistance amount doesn't just disappear. You have to make up the difference as a municipality in your budgeting. We also have a comparison of the various assist factors in a number of different sample communities. 1% is the most common assist factor by far, but there are some exceptions in some cases that communities have made. And we've also got a sheet as an attachment that shows the percentage increase in taxes or water and sewer rates with different assist factors, so the impact. So the report recommends proceeding with a 1% assist factor. If you decide to change the assist factor, we will need to change the bylaw, do a bit more work, and then come back and bring another bylaw at another meeting. So that is an overview of the council report. We're happy to answer any questions and have any discussion on this.
Councilor Chair.
Thanks, Ms. Joe, I was hoping you could go over a couple points for me, just so I make sure that I understood, because I feel like I thought I understood it when I read it, and when you described it, it was a little different. Can you tell me more about the credit system for places that already exist? I think I misheard. So, for example, a property that's already paid a DCC credit at, I'll let you do it.
If a property's already paid their DCCs, then they get credit for that DCC that they have paid.
So I guess,
but we also said, okay, well, if the there's kind of like 2 numbers. There's what they paid, and then there's also an amount of 120 square meters, which is about 19,500, which is probably more than most have paid, but it's the greater of that number that they get credit for. So basically, they're getting credit for as if they had paid for a home of a modest size.
Perfect. That's what I needed clarification on. Glad to come in with a few more questions after everybody else says.
Any other comments or questions? Carry on, Councilor Cherry.
I'll leave it at that at this point.
Okay. So I have a question. So just clarification. If we are going to change the municipal assist factor, we are not able to do 3 readings today, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we got to change the schedules in the bylaw.
All right. I just wanted everyone to be very clear on that sort of thing as we move forward. Councilor Chair.
I appreciate that. I remember my other question. As for teeth in the bylaw, what do we have that will force the city or council to relook at the bylaw? For example, is this something that's going to be relooked at every 2 years, or every time that we get a significant funding from another provincial level or somewhere else for a capital project?
Right. There isn't anything that forces a municipality to look at their DCC bylaw, but we have in our background report set out some recommendations, and there's a number of things that can happen. One, you can have an annual kind of cost of living increase that can occur almost not quite automatically. You have to do a bylaw, but you don't need approval of the ministry for it, and you don't have to redo all the calculations. All you have to do is take your DCC and increase it by the consumer price index for the general British Columbia. So that is one thing. The second thing is we generally recommend updating your bylaw every couple of years by not just CPI, but looking at the actual costs of construction. And that's what's called a minor DCC update. So then you can just say, oh, looks like the construction costs have come in a little higher than we thought. Let's just increase, and maybe instead of, consumer price index might be 4%, maybe construction costs have actually gone up by 8%. So then you would change things by that amount. And then every about 5 years, you want to do a full review and change everything. Now, and then there's a couple of other things. Yes, if you get a major grant, then you'll want to work that grant into the next update. Usually you do that when you do a minor DCC update and you say, okay, we got a grant, so let's make an adjustment. So, but there's no hard legislation that says thou shalt change it every X years.
Okay, thank you for that.
Any follow-up? Councilor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor Sols. I'll move that the municipal assist factor for development cost charges be set at 100%.
Second for that motion, Councilor Cherry.
I'll just speak to that briefly, but first a question through to Mr. Short. So the 1% is based on the numbers that we have. How up to date are those numbers?
Well, those numbers, we did a lot of the work in 2024. It's always one of the biggest projects, though, is right up to date. The wastewater treatment plant. Those are beautiful. And there are a few other projects in there that are quite up to date. But this is an ongoing thing with DCC bylaws. You're continuously trying to catch up as you go along. So I'd say some of the numbers are right up to date. Some of the numbers are 2024 numbers.
Thank you. So Mayor Sols, my point from that question is, even though the stated assist factor is 1%, the reality is the taxpayer is assisting more than 1% because time goes on, inflationary things.
Right.
And even for the wastewater plant, it's right up to date, unless the province doesn't get approval done, and then the numbers are going to be going up, and so that's the kind of thing that as it moves along, and so inflation continues. So anyway, I'm supportive, obviously, of the 1%. Thanks.
Good. Councilor Cherry.
Thanks, Marcel. Just a couple questions to finance. At a 10% increase, it looks like it'd be about a 2% cost that the taxpayer would have to front per year.
Ms. Moore, do you have any of that statistics?
As in annually, we have to increase taxes by 2% if we were to go with that number?
Yeah.
Just roughly.
So the way that the tax increases work is that 1% is representative to an increase for 1 year. That would happen, it wouldn't increase each year. It'd be, for example, we'd collect another $300,000 in year 1, and we continue to collect that each year to pay for the infrastructure.
Thank you.
That make sense?
Yeah.
Follow-up?
No, I'm not in favor of changing. I just want to make sure that everybody understood what the numbers look like.
Thank you. Any other comments on the motion on the fifth? Councilor Lyman.
Yeah, just a general question through the chair. I'm not sure who it's for, but regarding annual review of potential increases, inflationary increases, is that something that we're going to schedule to at least look at? And I'm also have another technical question. In the past, I understood they were capped, like there was a cap on how many you could do or something like that. So I'm just seeking a little bit of clarity. There was a reference to CPI increases. CPI increases are very different from the inflationary increases we see on capital construction projects, et cetera. So I'm just wondering, just seeking some scoping on how that review will work. Because I think one of the pitfalls of things sometimes is, you plan to do it and then you just don't do it. You don't get around to it. And then it's 4 years later and you're capped by the provincial government on what you're actually allowed to do. You can't make up for those considerations in the future. So I'm just wondering how that will work.
So Mr. Black, so I'll get you in a minute, Mr. Short, but Mr. Black's assured us that we will do that review once a year. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
And then any answers to follow-up question by Councilor Orlando, either you or Mr. Short?
I can answer one question. The CPI, you can only do that for 4 years.
That's
So,
all, yeah.
Yeah, you're allowed to do it for 4 years after you adopt the bylaw. And then, yeah, I think the understanding is that by the time 4 years has gone by, it should be time for a fresh update. And you are limited by those CPI numbers, which is very simple and straightforward, but you are limited by the CPI that year. So you kind of like look over the year, what's the CPI? That's the most you can do. If you want to do more to really reflect increases in costs, you can do a minor DCC update. And that's what we recommend doing every couple of years to make sure that you're keeping up with the actual construction costs that are happening here in Revelstoke. Because, as you mentioned, CPI, in our experience, is usually a fair bit less than what you actually see in terms of, especially the last few years. Even though CPI has gone up quite a bit, construction costs have gone up even more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. Paul? You're good?
No, but yeah, that's helpful to know. Just the note that increases are capped after 4 years. So, you know, you need to take a look at it for those 4 years, because in the past you go past and then they say it's too late. So sorry. And that ability to move is taken away. So yeah, I'm glad to hear we will be reviewing it on an annual basis.
Any other questions on the motion on the table? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Someone want to put number 2 on for me, please, Councilor Cherry?
Move that development cost charges bylaw number 2414 be read first time. Or should we do all three?
Go for it. If you want to do all three, go for it.
Second and a third time.
All right. Second for the motion, Councilor Lusal. Any further discussion on this motion? Councilor Cherry?
You have a question through the chair, Director Black. Would it be prudent to add an amendment that says that this bylaw must be adjusted every 2 years? Or if a large capital grant comes through? Or is there enough teeth in the bylaw as it's written?
Mr. Bob, comment, and then I'll go to Councilor Paul.
That's a good question. I just made a note to myself that I need to put a ticker in our annual calendar in the department that this be reviewed and that every 4 years we do a minor adjustment. I believe that perhaps a policy would be the right way to direct that. And if council so desires, we can create a policy that would go along with this.
All right, I appreciate that.
Councilor Paul.
Thank you, Mayor Solson. Thank you, Councilor Cherry, for the question. Just thinking about that, good intentions of the review and then the reality. I was thinking that probably the best time for that is after we've actually adopted the bylaw. So I made a note for myself to formalize through a council resolution, then it becomes instructions to staff.
Perfect.
And I'd be at support.
Yeah, okay, all right. Any other questions on the motion to read first, second, and third time? Seeing no comments, I will call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. And number 5. Councilor Palmer?
The development cost charges bylaw number 2414 and background report dated May 6, 2025 be submitted to the province for their approval and our review and approval.
All right, second for that motion, Councilor Lusal. Any further discussion on that motion? Councilor Palmer, comment?
Yeah, just as far as that motion goes, it's really up to the province if they decide to approve, but yeah, but they do have to review it. Thanks.
All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Mr. Short, thank you very much. I really appreciate all that you and Mr. Black and the departments have all done, even Mr. Simon has weighed in. Mr. Parliament.
I don't usually do this, Mr. Mayor, but I've known Joel for 21 years. This is how old I am. Joel presented and was successful in amending the District of Summerland's DCCs in 2003. He came to the District of Souk in 2008 and did the same thing. He came to the district of Sycamoose in 2015, 16, did the same thing, and now Revelstoke. And I can tell everybody, honestly, he is the preeminent DCC guru in the province of BC. I was never concerned that we would get here this day because Joel has proven himself over the years. So I just want to thank him because I've seen his work in the last 21 years, and this is a great day for Revelstoke. So thank you, Joel.
Thank
I'm
you.
dating myself and you.
Yes.
Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, I'm just tempted to echo. So I've also known Mr. Short for 21 years, back from Summerland days in a little bit different role, but working when at the time you were with Urban Systems, I believe, and helping crunch the numbers. So I was involved with the number crunching with you back in those days. Yeah, so you're potentially going into a new phase of life and stuff, but someday, maybe in another decade or so. But yeah, it's been a pleasure.
I'll let you do it.
All right, Councillor Dellon.
No, sorry, this has nothing to do with Mr. Short. I've known him for approximately 21 months, so I do need to duck out and take a very quick call.
Good.
And then,
Thank you, appreciate that. Councillor Cherry. did
I
you
was going to
want
make a similar joke, but just appreciate all the work you've done with us over the last 9 meetings for all the changes that we've asked for and that most of them come through. So thanks a lot.
Really, we're all appreciative of the fact that we've got through this, so it'll be nice to have that stuff come back and adopt it so that it's complete. Thank you again, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Going to go on to item 11, staff reports, consolidated financial statements. Ms. Moore, do you have oversight on that? I know we've had the presentation just before we put the motion on the table.
Through the chair, I do not have any further presentation. Ms. Spencer has presented the draft statements that are before you for approval. If you have any further questions, I'll direct them to Mr. Whitebook.
All right, great, thank you. Someone want to put this motion on the table for me, please? Councillor Lucero.
Move that the city of Revelstoke. Sorry.
Let's go for it.
Sorry.
I move the city of Revelstoke's consolidated financial statement for the year ended December 31st, 2024 be approved.
Seconded by Councillor Cherry. Any further discussion on this motion? Councillor Paul.
Thank you, Mayor Souls. We did have the auditor here, and I thought my questions, just a couple sort of very high level questions, because it does sort of comes up fairly glaring in the consolidated statement. So I'm not digging for anything; it's just for explanation to the public. So there is some variances on the budget from 2024 to the actuals.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the large number one, so I could ask them sequentially, maybe I'll do that. So on the revenues overall, maybe on a good note, or sorry, not on a good note, we had a projected revenue of 49 million and ended up with 45 million. And that shortfall was, what was the cause of that shortfall? Just at a very, very high level.
I think Ms. Spencer said something around grants. Does that reflect that correctly or not, Mr. Moore?
That's correct. So through the wastewater treatment project being delayed, we did not recognize as much revenue as we anticipated. And therefore, the grant revenue line item is below budget for the year.
Okay.
So that's the major item. Okay.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Then on the expense side, again, the expenses when you look at expenses, the 32 million as opposed to the almost 30 million budgeted. Some of the larger ones was protection services of about $100,000. So in general, what was that on?
Ms. Moore?
Through the chair, so throughout the year, the RCMP had a lower vacancy rate for their staff. And throughout the budget process, we do estimate what that would be. So although a positive thing for the RCMP department that they have less turnover of their officers, the overall budget is over. In addition, fire service calls were up this year, resulting in more wages for the fire department.
Okay. And then I think that was the biggest one. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Thank you, Mayor Souls.
Any other comments or questions from other councillors? Seeing Councillor Lund.
Yeah, through the chair, question regarding the recommendations in the management letter contains a number of recommendations. Just a general question, how staff is going to approach those.
Do you want to answer that, Ms. Moore?
Through the chair, sure. So the management letter points were received late last week. I've reviewed them this morning. The performance deposits, we have had ongoing discussions with the Development Services Department around cleaning those up as part of their permit procedures. And as for the building permit revenue, they do have a level of tracking mechanisms right now. However, implementing a permit software will certainly will help create a more formalized process for tracking that they have in their work plan this year. And I think with a couple of the points here, there might be some confusions with the auditors that we're going to resolve prior to these being finalized.
Can I answer your question, Councillor?
Yeah. And just a general comment. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate the response to those. One of the things that's come up a few times this year is just the necessary, the city's need on software across many departments to keep up to date, to find efficiencies using those. So it's good to see we are continuing that. I know the department has been active in other areas not reflected in that letter, and it's good to see we're continuing that to drive efficiency in our operations.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I will call the question on approval. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to 11B, Bill 16, implementation, inclusionary zoning and density bonusing. Mr. Simon, do you want to give us a brief overview on that? And we can put the motion on the table.
Certainly, through your worship to all of council. So what is before you is a request from council to give direction to move forward with exploring implementation of an inclusionary zoning and density bonusing system. So in April 2024, the province passed Bill 16, which gave new abilities for local government to address affordable housing challenges within their communities. One of those tools was a new tool called inclusionary zoning. So you can think of it as someone's building a new apartment building. Right off the top, the city could say through zoning regulations, X percentage of units need to be provided as affordable housing units. And we could get into the details on what that ultimately looks like in terms of rental rates, or if it's one unit that's being provided to the city and managed by one of our partners, et cetera. And it also updated regulations related to density bonusing. Density bonusing in a nutshell, you're allowed to build a 4-story apartment within your zone. We let you build an extra story, so you can do 5, but in return, you got to provide some amenity to the city. So back at the end of 2023, beginning of 2024, province provided the city $187,000 in grant funding to support implementation of the new legislation. City has spent about $87,000 of that in 2024 as it relates to addressing Bill 44, which was the mandated 4 units per lot that we have successfully embedded into our zoning bylaw, as well as completing a interim housing needs and demands assessment that was required to be done before the end of last year. So now we have about $100,000 left, and staff are recommending we use that money to explore implementation of Bill 16, being an inclusionary zoning and density bonusing system. Staff anticipate it would probably cost, we've had some quotes somewhere in the vicinity of $60,000 to $75,000 in consulting support, and the remainder would be used to offset internal staff operating costs. so that we can use this money towards the end of this year and potentially early on into 2026. How this project would essentially unfold would be we would do an analysis of all of our existing housing needs, come up with some zoning bylaw amendments, work with council, probably some presentations to committee of the whole through the process. We have to perform, and this is where the costs really get higher, financial feasibility analysis as part of this. So you have an economist come in. They basically do pro formas, because one of the key things with this legislation is it can't deter development. It has to work with the finances of market development, and that's where the cost really comes in, is working with an economist on that. So staff are recommending that we use the remaining funds this year to support implementation of this and to see whether or not it is a viable path for Revelstoke to support much needed affordable housing.
All right, thank you for that. Councillor Cherry, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Just a comment, generally I'm in favor of items like these. I'm not in favor of it being shoved upon us by the province. Luckily, in this case, we do have funding left over from the province, but I guess my next question is going to be is through the chair to Director Simon, what does this entail for your workload and what's planned? What will have to fall off the table, or can it be managed under our current workloads?
Through your worship, Councillor Cherry, thank you very much for the question. We do anticipate being able to manage this. We always did envision this being part, or maybe an updated council policy being part of our 2025 work plan. I will note one of the reasons why we're hoping to bring this earlier in the year, and in an ideal world, we wanted to do it as part of our zoning bylaw rewrite, but the provincial manual that gave more details on these tools wasn't released until about 3 weeks ago. It was unfortunately a little bit tardy. So we are, I don't want to say behind the 8 ball, but we have already begun a little bit of legwork, at least to get some quotes from consultants. So that should council be supportive of this, we can hit the ground running and start working with this, engaging with the development community and starting to do some of those economic performance.
Appreciate that.
Great, Councilor.
Thank you, Mayor Souls, and thank you, Councillor Cherry, for your questions. I have some additional questions through the chair. So basically, all the costs of this would be covered under the provincial grant, that $100,000. There wouldn't be any direct local tax dollars subsidizing this project of substance.
Through your worship, that is correct. And we would use some of the remaining funds to also cover internal staff costs as well.
So just a general comment. One of the things that I dislike is spending money just because it's money, grant money, because this is taxpayer money ultimately. Yeah. And I think that sort of builds on some of Councillor Cherry's questions. However, because there's been a lot of interest of these kind of items in the community, I think it's of importance and has been an importance for this council. The landscape has moved a lot, though we have a lot of affordable housing units coming online. So I'm assuming this would be addressing this inventory that's coming on. The other item that I sort of wonder about is, so we've just passed the DCCs, which arguably is putting a fairly significant financial cost on the development community. They might see a burden. And so then if we start requiring other things over and above, and I think that just goes back to the statement the planners stated regarding that it can't deter development, but it starts to feel like, okay, is this a deterrent? And then with all the inventory that's coming online in the next few years, is this really necessary or not? And the motion isn't on the table yet, so I'll just leave it at that. Thanks.
All right. Any other comments or questions before I get the motion on the table? Councillor Rowan.
Yeah, thanks to staff for bringing this forward. I guess my question through the chair is regarding the process for developing options as is laid out in the motion here. In essence, I'm wondering regarding consultation who we plan to talk to, and for example, Housing Society is one of them out there. I'm just seeking a little bit of direction from staff.
Mr. Simon.
Certainly, through your worship, Councillor Orlando. So we are required by the province to consult with the development community. And again, that's to make sure that the regulations don't deter development. But one of the key components of this for us would be engaging with our partners, specifically Revelstoke Community Housing Society. So very high level right now, because again, we're just at the beginning stages, so don't hold me to this. But one of the outcomes that we would really like to see with this, if the numbers work and this is a viable tool for Revelstoke, is a council policy. So when a market project is providing affordable housing, we have a policy that our partner would then operate under to take that unit on, operate it, have it be part of their portfolio. And long term, this could provide a lot of benefits for the community where we see affordable housing embedded as part of market projects scattered throughout the community, managed by our partner in accordance with the council policy. That's big picture thinking. And we have already engaged with the Revelstoke Community Housing Society at very high level stages to inform them that that is one of the outcomes we would like to strive towards. So they are on board with that at this time.
Paul?
Yeah, thank you. That's great to hear. Yeah, and I know in the zoning guide, it talks about options for those units generated through inclusionary density bonusing to be managed as an option. Just my general observation about this change that is, whose trigger point is changes in provincial legislation is that we've seen lots of iterations of these in other places. Some of them have worked, some of them have not. And often, in my opinion, a lot of the changes, housing related changes coming from the provincial government is often tends to have a focus on larger cities, bigger cities. So what works when you're doing 30-story towers doesn't necessarily work when you're at 3 stories over here. So I think we need to, and I trust staff, of course, will be able to do this, but to look at, what works in our context, what works in a specific small town context, what works in the context of a resort town, an isolated mountain town. Also what consulting with, everyone who we can to try and find the right mix of policies and tools, I think will be really important.
Okay, Councilor Cherry.
Through the chair, Director Black, do you have any concerns over this with our infrastructure? Perfect.
Good.
Simple.
All right, somebody want to put this motion on the table for me? Councilor Dublin.
I'll move that options for the implementation of an exclusionary zoning and density bonusing system be reviewed by staff.
So it's inclusionary. You're seconding, Councilor?
I was, yeah.
Okay, go for it. Yeah. Thank you.
I meant to say it.
You did it. You got it. All right. So we got first and second. Any further comments? Councilor Plummer.
Just one question through the planner. Is this exercise of considering a zoning and density bonusing system mandated by the province or just enabled by the province?
Through your worship, Councillor Palmer, it's not mandated, so it's enabled. One thing that is critically important that I should have pointed out earlier, if we don't use the funding, then we do have to return it to the province. And one of my concerns would be if we do go down that road, in 2 years, if the community says this is a priority, we want to look at implementing this tool, then we're using local taxpayer dollars to fund it. And by no means by exploring this, if we start going down this road and we realize this isn't going to work in the context of Revelstoke for some of the reasons that Councillor Orlando pointed out, or it's not financially viable, then we don't have to go down this road. But at least we're not spending dollars from our local taxation base to explore viability of it.
All right. Any other comments? I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Simon. Moving on to item C, short-term rental project. So before we get into this, do you want to take a 5-minute bio break?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. So, Ms. Delasal, we're just going to take a brief break here, and we'll be back in a few minutes. So I think we're all back ready to get back at it.
Okay, one moment, please. We are ready when you are, Your Worship.
All right, council, I'd like to go on to 11C, short-term rental project, setting a goal. Mr. Simon, you have a brief overview with some explanation to option 1.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is in response to council direction from April 28th, where staff had presented an overview of different goals for the short-term rental project that, once endorsed by council, would allow staff to start moving into policy and bylaw drafting scenarios and understanding and unpacking the implications of different ways to manage short-term rentals in the community. So based on the feedback that council had provided, we had amended previous goal option number 2 presented on April 28th to incorporate more flexibility and clarify that we would not be examining a policy scenario that would seek the city unpacking the implications associated with the provincial principal residence requirement. So that goal has been amended and specifically references utilizing a Maid and Revelstoke solution while accounting for the unique needs of the community as a resort municipality. Staff's hope is that this addresses the feedback that had been provided by council, and if not, staff are happy to go back and make any revisions as deemed necessary by council at this time.
Great, thank you, Mr. Simon. So option number 1 basically allows permanent residents in Revelstoke to participate in tourism economy by utilizing the Maid and Revelstoke solution while accounting for the unique needs of the community as a resort municipality. So I think that was the whole direction that this council was wanting to go as we move forward. So I'm just wondering if there's any comments on that. Are you comfortable as a group with that sort of scenario as we move forward? And if we are, then let's get this motion on the table. Okay, so I've got 3 of you with hands. All 3 of you want to make comment on this?
I have a comment, yes.
Okay, go ahead.
What I would like to see, and I want to make sure this is ingrained in option 1, is that if somebody has an STR, that it's not a whole home STR, that it does have either a long-term rental or permanent resident that is able to live on the property as well. So again, to try to summarize that, if there is an STR component at the house or at the property, that it also has a long-term rental component as well.
Okay. Comment on that, Mr. Simon? Any feedback?
Through your worship to Councillor Cherry, we will be very excited, once the idea is that the goal is established, and once that goal is established, then we come up with 3-4 different policy scenarios where it will be as specific as amend section blank of zoning bylaw to change this, and here's the outcome. And that's where council the community can really start fine tuning their feedback on what those different policy scenarios are. This is just kind of our high level roadmap on what are we trying to achieve associated with this update to our short-term rental regulations. And we can definitely delve into that as we start unpacking some of the policy scenarios in the next phase.
Good.
Thank you.
Councillor Lucian, did you have comment?
No.
Okay. Councillor Palmer, do you have comment?
I was just going to put the motion on the table that policy scenarios be prepared for future consideration by council to achieve the following goal: to allow permanent residents in Revelstoke to participate in the tourism economy by utilizing a Maid in Revelstoke solution while accounting for the unique needs of the community as a resort municipality.
Second for the motion, please, Councillor Stapeners. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I'll speak to it. It was committee of the whole when we were just discussing this, I guess, in detail. And
no, it was council.
It was council. Yeah. Okay, right. Yeah. So we all had a different different lenses, and so it was this sort of thing of going down into the weeds and staying at this high level. This is at the high level, and those details that we maybe don't all have the lens, but I think this captures the overall sense of where we need to go, and the specifics as laid out in that option 1 furthering report, I think captures fairly accurately the consensus amongst council.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, this is us basically saying to staff, let's get this done. And we can unpack this as we move forward. it gives a foundational part or an oversight as to how we move forward. Any other comments on the motion? Councilor Orlando.
Yeah, thanks. Just a comment that, I'm happy to see this move forward in a general statement like this. And I feel that getting too much into the weeds at this point limits our possibilities or options as staff explore this. Having said that, just a couple details is I think maybe a little bit more clear. I'm happy with it as we stand, but just as it is written, but moving forward in the process, the term permanent residence is actually a federal designation for somebody who has permanent residency. Might be worth revising that to also permanent residence implies going to be here forever, maybe to a current resident or something like that. Secondly, I guess just looking at the words to participate in the tourism economy, people don't just participate in the tourism economy through their home or short-term renting it. They do it through their jobs, through their businesses in lots of different ways. I feel it's a bit loaded to put it that way. I'm happy the way it stands to support it, but just food for thought as we move forward on that there's lots of other ways to participate in it, and that one of the challenges we've seen, especially in the years following the COVID pandemic and ongoing, is that businesses in the tourism economy have trouble participating in the tourism economy because they don't have workers to live in places there. So just food for thought on those two things. But as in general, I'm happy to move forward this as worded, but something to be considered as we go forward.
Great. Any other comments? I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Simon, and thank you to your staff for all the work on this short-term rental. All right, we are now going to move on to development permit amendment, student living. You have a brief oversight on that, Ms. Comars.
Yes, Your Worship. This is an amendment to an amendment, DP 2022-004. It's to alter the form and character for the third building in this build out, and it's also to add an additional to go from 19 to 20 units for this one, from the pre-proposed 7-plex into an 8-plex.
Right.
So this is an addition onto the end, an extra unit, and they're also changing the colors and the form and character. We went to APC back in July of 2024 to do the original amendment. Really good feedback from them at that time. So essentially this is a rollout of that one with updates to color and an additional unit.
Okay. And any other questions from Ms. Comars? Otherwise, I'll ask the motion to go on the table. So I want to put the motion on the table for me, please. Councilor Lucien.
Moves that amendments to development permits DP 2022-004 be issued to the form and character of a row house development containing 8 units at 1836 Hay Road.
All right, second to the motion, please. Councilor Devlin. Any further discussion on this motion? Being none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Comars.
And our applicant is here as well, so thank you.
Great, well, congratulations. As long as color doesn't go to pink with blue polka dots, we're good with it. Thank you. Okay. All right, we are now going to move on to PRC, lease renewal, Revelstoke Museum and Archives. Ms. Donato, do you have any comments, or Ms. Floyd, before we go on?
Thank you, Your Worship. Not much to add. The museum is currently operating under a 10-year lease, which comes to the end on May 31st, 2025. So they're requesting another 10-year lease under the same terms and conditions with some minor housekeeping amendments.
All right, great. Any comment?
Sure, Mayor Sauls. Again, the original lease that was signed and approved by council in 2015 did have a 10-year renewal clause. However, disposition needs to be done at this point.
All right, good. Does someone want to put this motion on the table for me, please? Councilor Devlin.
I'll move the council give notice of their intention to dispose of an interest in land and associated buildings by way of lease or of property in the city of Revelstoke, legally described as Lot 2, Block 3 Plan, NEP 88672, for the purpose of operating a museum for a 10-year renewal term commencing on June 1st, 2025 and ending May 31st, 2035, and to provide assistance at the annual rate of $10 per year for less than fair market value rent.
Seconder for the motion, Councillor Lucero. Further discussion on the motion? I'm definitely supportive of this. Glad to see the museum is being successful in its place and that the city can contribute. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Number 2, Councillor Devlin.
I move that the corporate officer and director of Parks, Recreation and Culture be authorized to sign the renewal lease agreement for a museum managed by the Revelstoke Museum and Archives Association for a 10-year term commencing June 1st, 2025 and ending May 31st, 2035.
Councillor Palmer, you want to second that? Okay, any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to Parks Master Plan Amendment. This is to reflect the designation of park located on Cedar Street and Serenity Park. So Ms. Thompson is here in our gallery, and she has generously donated that to the city. Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, I'd like to put the motion on the table that maps 1 through 4 of the Parks Master Plan be amended to reflect the designation of Serenity Park located at 711 and 789 Cedar Street as natural park and urban forest.
Second for the motion, Councillor Cherry.
I'd like to
you speak to it?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mayor Souls. Ms. Thompson's been a catalyst in helping us as a community, as a whole, having a higher ecological consciousness within our community. And this is a little piece of that. The success of that, this is getting built on the zoning bylaw. Again, where I think this was a major achievement from my perspective as a councillor anyway, that natural park and urban forest designation. And so that was rezoned in the zoning process. And so this is now implementing the details of that. And so really, really appreciative of that, and then seeing that as a catalyst for more development like that. Development, when I say protection of our natural assets. Thank you.
Any other comments by council? Ms. Thompson, before we call the question, I'm going to invite you if you would like to say anything. I normally don't do that, but under the circumstances, we're so appreciative of what you've done for our community and grateful for that. So I will allow you to speak if you so desire. Come right around. Yep.
I'm really not up to speaking very much. I just lost my husband. But I had already wanted to add, if you like, say that, you know, those Cedar Street lots were in my name. We can't remember who paid for them, he or I. And it was certainly, I fell in love with them in 2005, and it was my work and my project to protect them somehow. And I'm so happy the city is the recipient under the ECCC program, which is such strong protection. But I had some feelings since that somehow I wanted to say that it was also his generosity. I'm not just saying it because he's passed away. I was already thinking this because it was a family asset. You know, we bought it and we were going to do something with it for our kids, you know, to build on or something. And he was very supportive and generous about it all the way through. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to be here today. I know it's a hard time for you, and we are very grateful for your presence. And again, as a council in the city, our condolences to you over the loss of Robin. Council, I'm going to call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, we are going to move on to communications. 13A, Community Fire Smart Resiliency Committee minutes. Councillor Staples, do you have any comments on those minutes?
So just a really quick update. We, at the Fire Smart meeting that we had on March 27th, we had a presentation from Ms. Marfleet in regards to what is Community Fire Smart and the Resiliency Committee role, just to help us guide us on some of our objectives. And then we had a Wildfire Fest update. That's going to be taking place from May 26th through June 1st. To Neil Hamilton over at TR Revelstoke has been instrumental in developing that. So much gratitude to those two for all of their hard work. And I hope that everybody in the community can come out and attend those events. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any comments from council on those minutes? Seeing none, I'll move on to Social Development Committee. Councillor Lucen.
Thank you, Mayor Sills. Yeah, to piggyback off Councillor Stabenhurst, we had a presentation from Neil Hamilton about Wildfire Week. And then we had our final update from the Timber Winter Shelter before that ended at the end of April. And we also talked about trying to line up an emergency weather response for the winter time, lining up insurance. If we can find a space, takes some time. So just trying to work on that through the summer so we can have that plan for before it is needed. And then we had Megan McKesick start as the community development coordinator under economic development. So she was at the meeting for her second day.
Awesome, thank you. Any comments from council? Seeing none, I'll go to the City of Grand Forks. We received a letter from the City of Grand Forks from the corporate officer commending Revelstoke and our staff at the arena for allowing them to celebrate and how we treated the players and their families when they came here for the hockey tournament, Grand Forks and Revelstoke. And just really appreciative of how this community reaches out and treats others with immense respect and care. And for our staff, I am very thankful for how they supported them by allowing them to celebrate on the ice, to be able to do the things that teams would normally do, even though it was the end of the working day and the end of the tournament. So grateful for that. Any other comments from council? Councilor Cherry.
See you guys next year.
All right. Councilor Palmer.
Yeah, I understand that they've posted a portrait of you and CAO in their council chambers.
Thanks for that. It's apparently going to go on the big screen in the arena as well.
Just quickly, congratulations again to Grand Forks. In addition to beating Revelstoke for the Tech Cup, which is the KI championship, they went on to win the provincial championship as well. So they're the provincial champs. They beat Lower Mainland in 3 games. And so congrats to Grand Forks, first time ever. And they've been great sports to work with. So I guess we're gonna have to wear a jersey for a second time.
Yep, that's all right. We can do that, but payback will come.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you all. Any questions from the press, Ms. De La Salle?
We have no questions from the press, Your Worship.
All right, thank you. I'd like to go in camera pursuant to sections 90.1AI and 90.2B of the community charter. So want to make that motion for me? Councillor Devlin, seconded by Councillor Stapenhurst. All in favor? Motion's carried. We'll take a couple-minute break and come back in camera. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We're actually going to exit.